In this week's news roundup, severe gales and heavy rain forecast, Schoolboy robbed at knife point, and Anzac Day commemorated at Founders. A severe weather watch was issued by the Met Service at the beginning of this weekend, warning those in most Tasman district coastal areas severe gales will batter the region, especially overnight on Friday. Storm surges and strong onshore or longshore winds may pose a heightened threat to vessels inshore, especially paddlecraft, and those moored or anchored. The Tasman District Council Harbour Master advises vessel operators and owners of coastal structures such as jetties and moorings to check for adequacy and security of ground tackle and lines. Loose equipment and vessels in low-lying foreshore areas should be secured to prevent washaway. Bilges and pumps should also be checked. Mariners are being urged to remain up to date with the forecast and to seek shelter if necessary. The severe weather watch issued at the beginning of this weekend for the Nelson region included the possibility of significant heavy rain in the ranges of Nelson. Rainfall intensities were expected to increase on Friday evening, with rain forecast to continue through Friday night and Saturday, but at that stage it was uncertain whether accumulations would meet warning criteria. Police are investigating an incident on Wednesday morning in which a 14-year-old boy was robbed on his way to school. The boy was walking along the railway reserve around 8:40 a.m. just north of Nelson Intermediate when he was approached by a man who threatened him with a knife and demanded he handed over his bag. The offender rifled the boy's bag and took his lunch before running off. The boy was very shaken by the incident. Nelson Police Communications spokesperson Barbara Dunn says police inquiries are continuing. She says they've had some information come forward from the public as a result of publicity around the incident, and they're in the process of reviewing the relevance of that. Police are still keen to hear from anyone who was in the Railway Reserve area on Wednesday, April 17th at around 8:40 a.m. and who may have seen anyone fitting the following description in the vicinity. The offender is described as a male, possibly Maori, in his 30s. He was about 6 foot 2 inches tall and rough-shaven. He was wearing a grey beanie, blue-green raincoat and shiny blue-black track pants. The shellfish ban at Port Underwood has been lifted, however the ban remains in place for Queen Charlotte Sound and Tory Channel. Nelson Marlborough Medical Officer of Health Dr Jill Sherwood says testing of shellfish in Port Underwood has shown the levels of diuretic shellfish poisoning toxin have returned to a safe level, and it's now safe to harvest and eat shellfish from this area. However, she says the more serious paralytic shellfish poisoning toxin remains at unsafe levels in shellfish in Queen Charlotte Sound and Tory Channel. She says continued testing in these areas has shown that levels of the toxins have declined but are still at unsafe levels for human consumption. The areas affected remain all of Queen Charlotte Sound between Cape Jackson across to Cape Komaru, Tory Channel out to East Head and West Head. Dr Sherwood said symptoms of paralytic shellfish poisoning are numbness and tingling around the mouth, face or extremities, difficulty swallowing or breathing, dizziness, double vision, and in severe cases paralysis and respiratory failure can occur. She says acute symptoms of PSP usually occur within 12 hours of eating shellfish. She advised people not to eat kina, mussels, pipi, tuatua, oysters and cockles harvested from affected areas since March 15, 2013. Life in an English city under a bomber's moon will be the feature of this year's Lest We Forget Anzac Day commemoration at Founders Heritage Park. The fully interactive, award-winning 3-day reenactment event, now in its 6th year, runs on Saturday, April 20th, Sunday, April 21st and Thursday, April 25th. Organiser TJ Ramsey says Lest We Forget is run by volunteers and is attended by thousands each year from New Zealand and further afield. She says it offers visitors the opportunity to experience wartime history in a very real, educational and unforgettable way. TJ Ramsey says this year they've had 5 big activities that create a total immersion, historically accurate experience. She says this begins with the Nelson Pine Industries Blitz experience, a purpose-built community in the Energy Centre, where visitors will experience life under a bomber's moon, in which people will be able to see families living their everyday lives during a bombing raid in 1941. Other activities include the Nelson City Council Wall of Remembrance with static displays, storyboards and multimedia. The Network Tasman Pacific War display shows the threat of Japanese invasion and the Anzacs who held the line. Then there's the Cuts at Once Lions Corner Cafe, where visitors queue to purchase ration coupons, then taste and try a variety of wartime cooking, and the Office Max Resistance Challenge, where participants' mission is to deliver a message to their contact. Visitors can also experience things like a wartime children's carnival, sirens, battle reenactments, wartime comedy and patrolling soldiers. Mainland's Chrissy Small spoke with some of the actors participating in the reenactments earlier this week.
Now chaps, looks like you're really in the business here.
I hope so. I mean, you know, we have a nurse and we have two wardens. This is the chief warden.
Chief warden.
But I've been there and he hadn't. You see, I've done
Oh, no, that rubbish.
The home guard in the rear there, that helps, yes.
Yeah. There's a home guard man here. Should we pull him in over here? Of course, you know, I'd be in the forces, but just a little bit old. Not as old as him. Well, he was in the last lot, you know, and he never keeps on about it, don't you? On and on about it. Oh.
You weren't there, mate.
I'm in charge now, though.
And I see that you're the one that does all the cleaning up.
Yes, as you can see, it's been a pretty rough night out there, actually. It's been pretty tough on that blitz, but, you know, we'll get through. We always do.
Yes.
Yeah. Just stay calm.
Bombed out, but not bombed in.
That's exactly right.
Right. And how are you going with all this mayhem?
Yeah, you can see why he's not on the front line.
Speechless, absolutely speechless.
You know, a bit of a bombshell, you know, it can affect some people. You know, not all of us have got to stiff upper lip, you know, can face the hunt.
You weren't there, mate.
Oh, and she's got to go, Oh, well, there you go.
Right, well, we look forward to seeing more of you.
Excellent.
I'm seen and not heard.
And now Chrissy Small speaks with Derek Nees, the Nelson Regional President of the RSA. Chrissy Small caught up with him in Anzac Park to talk about the preparations of next Thursday's Anzac Day commemorations.
Derek Nees, it's wonderful to have you here today, down here at Anzac Park. Of course, it's all going to happen on Thursday of next week. This is the place for the dawn service, is that correct?
That's correct. We will be assembling at Miller's Acre at around 6 o'clock. You'll hear a lot of noise going on down there, and then we march from there to here at around 6:20, and then once everybody's in the park at 6:30 in the morning, the service actually starts.
Right, so it's one for the early birds, really.
It definitely is one for the early birds, and nobody's earlier than me on that morning, I can tell you, because I organise it all. But I think it's one of the nicest services around on that day.
Yeah. And I guess you'll have the trumpeter heralding the event?
We will have a bugler, and our bugler, we're very lucky in Nelson to have Sergeant Mason Robinson, Royal New Zealand Air Force, who's a very, very good bugler. And the piper this year for the laments at all of the wreath layings will be Peter Smith, who is none other than the brother of our own MP, Nick Smith.
Right. So it's quite an affair, really. And this, of course, is the first service. There will be more during the day.
Yes, there is. After this service, everybody tends to gravitate back to the RSA, but at 8:15 we lay a wreath. We have a little ceremony out at the Walkerport Servicemen's Cemetery and lay a wreath out there. At 8:45 we come into, and this is just small groups of people, and whoever wants to turn up, please do. Feel free to do so. At the Boer War Memorial in Queen's Gardens, which is off the Bridge Street entrance, we have a wreath laying ceremony there. At 9 o'clock at the church steps, just around the corner from the church steps at the First World War Memorial, there's a service there which is sponsored by the Nelson Cathedral and Nelson City Council. And then at 10 o'clock we lay wreaths at the Marsden Valley Services Cemetery. And then at 10:45 we assemble at Isle Park Gates and we march to the Stoke Memorial Hall for what we call the Stoke Civic Service, which is for the later risers.
This is a great time for the community to come out and show support for those that have gone and those that remain from those world wars, as well as Vietnam, Korea, and of course our more later wars, the Iraq and the Afghanistan.
And please don't forget the Malaya-Borneo veterans, because they'll shoot me if you do. They had an important part to play in the whole affair as well. Yes, it is a good opportunity for the community to commit to doing something. With the centenary events starting next year for the First World War, centenary commemoration will be going on for the next 5 years in fact, and so it's a good way for the community to begin to become involved with that.
Now, people can join the RSA, can't they? You don't have to be a serving military person.
I'm pleased you asked me that. Yes, there are 3 grades of membership in the RSA nationally: return member, service member and associate member. All grades have the same price and they all carry pretty much the same privileges. In Nelson it's $60 to join for a member, and it's $80 for a couple. That will make you automatically a member of the Nelson Suburban Club to start with, and you also have reciprocal visiting rights to all of clubs New Zealand and RSAs throughout the country.
And it's a great network, isn't it? A really supportive network to be involved in.
Well, it certainly is, and when you're at national executive level and we go there every 3 months for a meeting, it's great to meet up with people that you actually did serve with. But as you travel around the different RSAs, you meet people, and people who have had nothing to do with the military. They may have had a family connection at some point. That makes it a little bit more special. But apart from that, it's just a great camaraderie that we have within the organisation.
Now, John Beeching was a man that came into our news last year, a former pilot for the Royal Air Force in England, of course. Can people like him join the RSA?
Absolutely. John Beeching, in fact, he's a past president of one part of the RSA when we split into 2 parts here in Nelson a number of years ago. He was the president of the Memorial Association. Nice. And a very active member of the RSA for years. Wonderful guy. Supported me when I was the president of Nelson RSA, and we had a lot of laughs together. Now,
so anyone who's served in any of the wars from anywhere in the world can come and join the RSA?
Certainly can, and we welcome them. Absolutely. Commonwealth Armed Forces have a little bit more pull perhaps than others, but we welcome basically anybody. Yeah.
Look, Derek Nees, it's a real pleasure to talk to you today about what we've got coming up next week, and good luck with getting up early in the morning on Thursday.
Well, as I said before, this is a precursor to the centenary events of World War One. Yes. The community can become involved by, first of all, joining the RSA. Secondly, they can become involved by coming to the commemoration events, and there'll be a number of them. Thirdly, we are looking at a Fields of Remembrance program where we're going to put white crosses out, and you can see the number of names on the memorial behind us here, and there are more around the other side. We're looking at putting crosses out in the garden here somewhere for each of those people. So some of the family members could personalise those crosses, and we've found that this has happened in other places. And so they put photographs of the family member and so on, and it becomes a personal thing, and they'll come out each commemoration event after that, and we'll be looking at doing that next year.
That sounds like a fabulous idea. Derek Nees, thank you very much for talking with us here at Mainland Television today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Look forward to seeing people on the street buying poppies tomorrow, and look forward to seeing them here early or late next Thursday.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Nelson City Council has advised work is underway at Marsden Cemetery and will mean access to an area of the returned services section will be restricted on Anzac Day. The work is being done on behalf of Veterans Affairs and involves pouring new concrete beams, installing commemorative plaques and replacing the grass. Delays in the project have meant it won't be finished in time for this year's Anzac Day commemorations, so a small section of the graves won't be accessible. The Return Services Association has been informed about the restricted access. Any inconvenience or upset this may cause to relatives is deeply regretted. 3 families are understood to have been cut off or affected by the Graham's Valley Road slip due to recent heavy rain. The road has been closed until further notice. Tasman District Council says while the damage has been greatly limited by the engineering measures put in recently, after discussion with families, it's been deemed impassable. The situation is being further assessed by the council and its contractors as the slip movement and the rain stops. Last year, the road which provides access to the Flora car park and the Kahurangi National Park was closed for 5 months, cutting access for 3 families living there. They had to walk across a massive slip until the road reopened in December. Nelson City Council has scaled the ranks of the local government league table and has moved from 19th place to 9th place in the past year. Tasman District Council is also doing well and is ranked 22nd, up 7 notches from last year's ranking. In financial and policy analyst Larry Mitchell's independent summary of 2013 Local Government League Table, released in February this year, Nelson City Council is referenced as a consistently high performer and higher this year. The Local Government League Table scores and ranks each of the 72 New Zealand territorial local authorities in order according to the strength of each council's financial sustainability, as well as the affordability of council rates and charges to their local communities. Nelson Mayor Aldo Miccio says his goal was for Nelson to rank amongst the top 5 councils. Meanwhile, Aldo Miccio this week announced his intention to halve council's debt from $140 million to $70 million while maintaining rates rises at no greater than 3% per annum. I asked Mr Miccio how he hoped to achieve this.
There's a number of ways. I mean, we've had a lot of success in the last 3 years at looking at our operating expenditure. We've been managing to keep rates low, the lowest rate rise of any term of council in 20 years, and we're going to continue to do that around operating expenditure, which is $1 to $2 million a year at least in savings. And of course, we're looking at matching our capacity to actually deliver on capital projects to the capital projects budget. And doing those two things there, we can actually keep rates at a level of around 3%, and we have the full potential to realise halving the forecast debt in the next 5 years. Council has done a considerably good job, like I've mentioned, over the last 3 years at getting under the bonnet there, and we're really looking at those costs and efficiencies within council. We've had independent group that works for central government and local government has moved our ranking up from 19th to 9th. I think we were around about 30th about 4 years ago, or 40th about 4 years ago. And so last year we were 19th, and this year we've been ranked 9th because of that good job we're doing. We've also, just last year, got for the first time ever a Standard & Poor's rating of AA-, and which is very significant because it's the highest outside of central government credit rating that any organisation can have in New Zealand. So from having the lowest rate rises in 20 years, Standard & Poor's rating AA-, and now moving up the rankings to the 9th most affordable and sustainable debt levels of any of the 72 councils in the country. Right now we're one of the highest achieving councils in New Zealand in terms of affordability and debt, and we aim to improve on that over the next 5 years.
Brilliant. And so this league table, how is it measured?
They measure on 2 key factors around debt sustainability and what your debt levels are per capita, and the other one is around affordability of rates and what your rates are per resident per ratepayer. And those 2 scores together give you your total ranking, and our score puts us 9th out of 72 councils. So we're quite high up there. We're in the top 15% performing councils in the country, and I believe over the next 5 years we can increase that and get into that top 5, if not number 1. So and still deliver, namely number 1 most priority in the need is deliver on your core services, but we're still going to deliver all those things that will help get Nelson on the map and economic development and promote the region around the country as well. So that's still a priority for me, and the budgets that I'm proposing will still deliver on all those aspirations.
An improved and larger Anchorage hut is to be built on the Able Tasman Coastal Track to meet demand to stay in this popular Great Walk hut, and will be ready for use this summer. The old 1970s built hut at Anchorage is being removed to make way for the new hut, so temporarily it will only be possible to camp at this bay from May 6th for around 6 months while the new hut is built. No hut accommodation will be available at Anchorage until the new hut opens for use, which is aimed for early November. Another alternative option is for those walking the Able Tasman National Park coastal track during this time to stay at Bark Bay Hut, 3 to 4 hours walk from Anchorage. Department of Conservation Motueka Visitor Assets Program Manager Mark Townsend says the current 24 bunk Anchorage hut was full around 140 nights a year, more than most dock huts and the other 3 huts on the Able Tasman coastal track. He says the new hut will have 34 bunks, bringing it into line with the other two huts on the busiest section of the Able Tasman Coastal Track south of Tautanui, Bark Bay Hut, which sleeps 34, and Awaroa Hut with 30 bunks. He says the living area in the current Anchorage hut is too small and cramped at busy times. He says the new hut will have a larger living area, more outdoor space in which to relax, and 4 bunk rooms. After the break here on Mainland Television News, new law could mean jail for protesters, and Nelson named one of 5 tech-savvy cities.
TV in the South Island goes digital on 28 April. If you don't have Freeview, Sky, Igloo or Telstra Clear TV by then, this is what you'll see on your TV.
Get your hands on some Roman technology. Discover the amazing legacy of this great empire. Check the Nelson Provincial Museum website for special ticket deals.
Nelson Tire Centre. Great prices, great service. Buy your own Bryford trailer. All types, all sizes. See Colin Douglas for your tyres and batteries.
Hi, I'm Duncan from Health 2000 Nelson and Richmond. At Health 2000, we are the experts in your good health and well-being. If you have questions about natural health, we can answer them. Health 2000 Nelson, Motueka, and our Richmond Mall store is now by the new entrance.
A Shape New Zealand Horizon poll this week has found that 79% of New Zealanders are uncomfortable with the sea protest law change bill that was passed on Tuesday. The majority of those polled want the bill to go back to Select Committee or to be dropped. Chrissy Small spoke with a Nelson man who in past years was involved in sea protests, and one in particular that had a huge impact on New Zealand politics and our world position as a nuclear-free country that still exists today.
There was 12 boats that went from New Zealand at that time, Chrissy. It was in 1995. It's the last time that there was a protest fleet that had to sail from New Zealand to Mururoa, because the following year the French did actually stop testing at Mururoa, and they subsequently dismantled all their gear there and left.
Right. So how, as a concerned citizen of New Zealand now, Nigel, how do you feel about this new bill that's come to pass in the last few days that our government has brought in to make it illegal to protest at sea?
Yeah, well, it's not very positive in terms of being able to demonstrate or protest against anything, because they've made it a prisonable offence to get in the way of any of these boats which are doing activities which may not be appreciated by people in the community, such as researching for oil or minerals or drilling for these things or whatever. So they've made it a prisonable offence, which is very questionable whether they should be doing that.
So it means that protesters really aren't going to be able to do much on the water anymore.
No, I believe that they're not going to be allowed to within 500 metres of any of these vessels which are performing the undesired activities. So you're going to have a situation where there's going to be a bunch of people over one side waving flags saying don't do this, and the ships doing it are going to be happily doing whatever it is they are over the other side. So it won't get much attention, and in fact it's almost going to be impossible to actually demonstrate against these things in the future.
Do you think this is undermining a civil right for New Zealanders?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a way of saying, we don't mind you protesting as long as you do it over there, and then you do it just for 5 minutes and then you go back home and we can carry on with our agenda.
It's very interesting. We've got the Horizon poll figures that came out this week. Now, this is, I think there were close to 2,000 people participated. Now, 79% of those who polled basically want the sea protest law change reviewed or stopped. That, of course, hasn't happened since this poll. It's been passed. What does that say about our current politics?
Well, they're not necessarily interested in doing what the majority of people want. John Keys says he's got a mandate to pass anything he wants to. It's a bit like you're stuck with a first past the post situation like we used to have, where once you were in power, you could do whatever you like for the next 4 years until there was another election. There's not a lot of difference between then and now in terms of if you've got a majority, you can push it through. If you've got United Future and ACT to vote for you, and the Maoris perhaps to vote for you, you can do whatever you damn well please.
With regard to the commercial operations that may want to come in and look at the mineral and oil resources that we have, some might argue that that's actually good for our country on an economic basis. What would you say to that?
Well, they're principally interested in themselves, aren't they? Oil companies' principal activity is self-interest. Any transnational, multinational corporation is going to be interested in pursuing its own agenda. It's not really interested in the people that it's exploiting. They just happen to be in the way, really. So when they come over to New Zealand, they're not really interested in what we want. They're interested in what they want, and they want to get it as best, as easily as they can. I know that John Key's just been in South America recently, so he may well have been talking to the Brazilian researchers about their recent activities here, and hoping that he can get them to come back and carry on.
And finally, Google has named Nelson as one of New Zealand's top 5 most internet-savvy cities, saying the town is full of businesses making the best use of the internet, social media and online marketing. The search giant named Nelson as one of the country's top 5 e-towns, together with Auckland, Wellington, Queenstown and Tauranga.
Waimea Telecommunications, specializing in free-to-air satellite TV, computer cabling, telephone systems, wireless and broadband internet installations. Call Julian Toon on 544-4203.
Get your hands on some Roman technology. Discover the amazing legacy of this great empire. Check the Nelson Provincial Museum website for special ticket deals.
Thought you were too old for laser vision correction? If you're between 40 and 65, you may still be eligible. Laser blended vision is a new treatment, offering you freedom from glasses and contact lenses. Get a suitability assessment or a brochure now. See more clearly. See the Eye Centre.
And now some community notices to put in your diary. Alzheimer's Nelson is hosting a series of information sessions for the community. Join them at the Stoke Baptist Church on Wednesday the 24th of April from 10 a.m. to hear about advanced care planning. And the AGM of Nelson Grey Power Incorporated is being held at 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 23rd of April at the Suburban Club Tahunanui Drive. All financial Nelson Grey Power members are invited to attend. Nibbles and refreshments will be served. And on behalf of the team here at Mainland Television News, thanks for joining us. Have a safe weekend, and we'll be back again next week with the latest news and events from around the region.
supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.